Hello and welcome to this month's drawing tutorial. This month we're going to draw a woman in white, and so we're going to have a double challenge. First of all, of learning how to draw white cloth, and also we have a tilted face that's out at a 3/4 turn. So begin by measuring the length and width, putting a paper frame around your reference, and marking down the midpoint of each side, and then give yourself a few increments around the midpoint. So I chose 2 on either side of the midpoint for the width and 3 for the length. Then I set up a proportional square in my drawing paper and put down the same number of marks at the same places. So once you have your graph ready, use it to find the top of the head and the bottom of the chin, so we can mark those off first. Make sure that your straight edge is consistent side to side, not tilted. Then to get the angle of the face right, lay your straight edge on a line that touches 2 points that will be easy for you to refer to later. So for instance, the cheek, the cheekbone, and the chin. So then I can put that down as a guideline there for that angle. Keep those guidelines nice and light. The side of the head is right between A and B, so I'll put that down. And then find a few more handy points like the side of the scarf, and anything that lines up right on a number or a letter is going to be very useful. Let's find this point, and then since it's a curve, we'll also find this point. Bop, put a little dot there. Now when you have enough of those points marked in, then you can just connect them with a sketchy line. And then I'm just going to refer to my graph and sketch in some of these other large points here. So this is the edge of the face. The chin was supposed to end up about here. And I'll sketch on the edge of the scarf. Okay, and we have a good beginning to the head right there. And what's really handy about the graph is knowing these points where the picture intersects the graph. This should intersect about here, fill that in, and now I have a fairly good sense of where the large shapes on the picture are going to go. Then once large shapes are in place, I'm going to continue to use my graph to place some of these interior shapes, like the features on the face. So the first step is getting a clear guideline for the eyes. So if I place a diagonal on the bottom of the eyes, and mark off where that diagonal bisects the outer frame, I can use that as a measurement for placing the eyes on my picture. Then I know that the tip of the nose intersects the B point. The bottom of the nose is right at 3.5. So if this is the bottom of the nose and this is the tip of the nose, then I have the boundaries on 3 of the sides, and that's enough to make a square to roughen the tip of the nose. I have the bottom of the eye. I know the top of the eye is going to be, I'll rough it in about here for now. And then the corner of the eye on this piece lines up with the edge of the nostril, so it's going to be about right here. Now when those boundaries for the features are blocked in, then I can start to really roughly place those features within those boundaries. And I'm still referring to the outer graph here as well to make sure that I'm not going too crazy far off kilter in where I'm placing these shapes. And this is the way that I'm going to work until I have the features in the right place on the paper and the right size proportional to each other. Put your time in this initial layout phase. This is where you can make changes the most easily, and this is where you determine if the portrait in the end is going to look right or wrong. When you get to this level in the drawing, the portrait should look recognizable. Don't push forward until everything looks like it's in a good place. And then once you get this far, it's time to start adding some skin tone. So I'm just going to work laying down a nice light tone. I'm going to go across, working from the dark side to the light side. Avoid the eyes. And if you have any sharp edges, like the edge of the scarf against her face, you can protect those with tape. Okay, this is called art tape. You can just put it down. You see how I just tamp it down with my finger as I go. then it tears easily as well. Now back to filling in that tone. I can go right up to the edge of the art tape. You want your tone to be light enough so that at the end, after blending, you can pick out the sharp highlights around the nose, cheeks, and chin. Put your tone in the hair down as directional strokes in the hair growth. When the tone is down, use a chamois cloth, wrap it around your finger, and just use small circle strokes like this to blend that tone together. Then you need to go in a second time and emphasize the darker areas of this flesh tone. So here where there's a shadow on her face and under her cheekbone, bottom of the chin. Then for the second pass, go in with a stomp or tortillon. Large circle strokes using the stomp on the side will give you the smoothest tone possible. And work this way until all of that skin tone is blended smooth for the second pass. And now at the end of this pass, you can see some of the shadow shapes that are on the face here. They're slightly defined, but it's fairly monochromatic. So now we're going to go in with a pencil again and bring out those features a second time. I'm going to concentrate on the darkest lines. So definitely around the eye, iris, and the pupil. There's the nostril, there's the edge of the nose, and then in the mouth. I'm not outlining across, that would make it look like a clown mouth. I'm just adding a little bit of emphasis in the darkest lines. I'm going to add some work here in the hair and on the side of the face as well. But then after adding some more line to the features, I'm going to blend out those lines with a stomp. So let me work this way for a little bit off camera, bringing these features up to the next stage, and I'll come back and we'll look at shading in the clothing and some additional detail work in the face. Here I've pushed the portrait forward just a little bit, but I want to show you how to use your kneaded eraser to make those negative lines. So here on the bridge of the nose, there's a really precise one. Just take a kneaded eraser, mash it into a blade, and then carefully pull out that negative line. And then after you've done that, use a sharp pencil and just strengthen one side of the line. After strengthening the line, use a small stomp and blend out one side. Then you might need to strengthen it again, and then you might need to soften it again. And by following this process of strengthening and softening, you wind up with strong contrasts that don't look too artificial because they're not outlines. Now, we're at the details stage. I'm feeling more confident now, so I'm going to add some little details in the features like eyelashes, some lines in the lips, and some individual hairs in the eyebrows. And I'm also going to strengthen this contrast next to the tape because I want to be able to remove the tape so that I can start working on the hair and the scarf. Alright, that's pretty good. So now I'm going to remove the tape, and now you can see how strong that line is. Okay, now let's add some tone to the hair. You can do dark areas quickly with the charcoal pencil. I'm going to sort of vaguely outline the highlight portion of the hair and then add some strong strokes working around those highlights. And then I'll lighten up my pressure and go across the highlight so it's not so starkly different. And then smooth your tone with that stomp. Make sure to blend all the way to the tape so that you get a good clean line when you pick it up. And then if you need to go in a second time and strengthen some of those darks, you can. So let me just take a little bit of time off camera and do some of these details in the face, and I'll come back when it's time to push into the clothing. Now that I'm done with the face, I'm going to remove this tape and start working on the cloth. So I'm going to start by filling in this large shape of tone. Before I shade, I'm going to use some tape again and define this scarf edge. Now with this outer edge protected, I can go right over the top more darkly just like I did in the face. When you have the tone laid down, get that chamois and then blend it smooth right up to the tape using those circle strokes. I'm going to drag it right into the lightest areas as well so I get a base tone over everything. Then keep your reference material close and start to bring out the lines, the folds, and the creases. I'm just indicating these folds with one line to begin with to make sure that they're in the right place on the fabric. And then once I'm sure that I've got them in the right place, I'll darken up the creases. After darkening up a crease, I'm going to blend the pockets of shadow smooth with a stomp or tortillon to keep that nice and even. And I'm going to blend out one side of the line for these skinnier areas. After blending smooth, you can go in and sharpen up some of these little seams. And I'm still referring to that outward grid to help me to place those sleeves. And go back and darken up the darkest areas once you're sure of those shadow shapes. So I'm just going to go back and forth, darkening up the shadow shapes, picking out the details, and just like I did on the face, slicing out the highlights with the mashed down kneaded eraser, using it as a blade. So let me finish up this portrait, finishing up this sort of work off camera. I'll come back to show you the final result. When you've pushed the drawing forward to this point, it's really close to done. So you just need to remove your tape, see how that outer edge looks. Then after removing the tape, I'm going to go in and just sharpen up some details that I see on the outside here. If you want to make a line really precise on one edge, just get a piece of paper, lay it down, and then go right up to the edge of it. And you can even blend, holding down like this, and when you lift up, that edge is nice and precise. And once you've decided that the drawing is done, remove the final little pieces of tape around the outside. There's the bottom of the drawing, and there's the top. And by using some eraser shielding techniques and just taking my time and working from the large shapes to the small, I finished with a nice realistic portrait of this woman in white. So that concludes this month's drawing tutorial, and as usual, thank you so much for watching.